give us kind of an overview of your background and some of the books that you've written.
Okay, well, like you, I write across the board. I write for middle grade and young adult. I also write for very young kids. I have baby books, the little hardback, the little cardboard ones, the kind that babies chew on. I have some of those. And then I have a lot of picture books. In fact, I started out in this field as a picture book writer. So, and as it so happens with a lot of people, as my kids got older, my writing tended to get, older. So I write all across the the realm of children's books. So yeah, and that's, I started writing when I was 6 years old, I think, and so it's always been a part of my life. So I feel really fortunate to get to write for kids.
Well, I feel that we're all very fortunate that you're writing for kids and for the rest of us.
Okay.
You're a Newbery Honor recipient. You've been nominated for the National Book Award, multiple other awards, an Amazon #1 book mention. You're a New York Times best-selling author. You have so much to teach us. So obviously, the first question I have for you is, Kathi Appelt, have you ever seen a flying saucer?
That's a great question. No, but I do intend to before I die.
So you're a believer. You think they're flying around up there?
Absolutely. I mean, the universe is so huge. I think it's very unlikely that we're the only living creatures in the solar system. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I will send you some literature that you'll feel obliged to not to not read. I am 100% convinced that not only are we not alone, but there are some that are visiting us already, if not
Well,
from space, from somewhere. But that's the subject of the Book of David and other things. What I wanted to, well, I've got so many questions for you, but I first wanted to thank you because you taught me maybe one of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned about being an author. About 6 years ago, what I remember, because my wife was very pregnant with our son, you came to a Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators conference in Fort Wayne. And I was walking around with my name tag on, and I'm sure it said Rob Kent. I'm sure I scribbled under it middle grade ninja, because that's just how I roll. I wear T-shirts with my name on them, and if I'm not wearing one with my name on it, I make sure it gets on there. And you saw me, and you had just a crowd of adoring fans around you, as I imagine you have anytime you go to a conference. But you had plenty of people that wanted to shake your hand, and you saw me, and you made a point to cross the room and thank me. I had reviewed the underneath on middlegradeninja.com, and you'd faced 7 questions. That interview, of course, is still available. I'll link to it in the show notes. But you thanked me, and I remember one, just absolutely being thrilled, like, oh my gosh, the sun is shining on me in this moment. Kathi Appelt is taking time to thank me. But then in the intervening years, I've thought about sort of the absurdity of that, because for God's sake, the underneath is doesn't need me to sign off and say it's a good book. The underneath is pretty widely acknowledged to be a classic of children's literature. And I've always thought that that's what a successful author does. That's the difference between a successful author and everybody else. One of the things, now obviously, you still have to write amazing books, but you've done that. But after that, because I imagine maybe it was just that one day and you're a jerk to everybody else you ever encounter, but I don't think so. I think that's a part of what makes Kathi Appelt is going out of your way to acknowledge people. And that has taught me a lot about the sort of author I want to be out and about in the world. Not a question on there, just a thank you and an acknowledgement that that's who you are.
Well, gosh, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. As you were talking to me, well, first of all, I just want to say that I feel like practicing gratitude is a huge part of being an author. I try to remember every day to be grateful for what I do and for what I'm able to do. And, grateful for my desk and grateful for my cup of coffee and all of that. I think gratitude can get you very far way down the road. But I do want to mention that I had a similar experience years ago when I was just starting out. I was at the Texas Library Association conference here in Texas, and you probably know that's a huge conference. I mean, it's a major conference every year, and I had only been a couple of times. I think my first or maybe my second book had just come out, and so every year there's this huge publishers party where all the publishers get together and they have like a meet and greet, and it's a major cocktail party and all of this. And my husband and both of my boys were with me, and the boys were probably, I want to say 12 and 10, something like that. So, and they were just popping in, and then my husband was going to take them, for dinner while I did my meet and greet, my handshaking and all that. Well, there was an author in the room who was, really well-known author. It was Gary Paulson. And at the time, Hatchet was it's still a major book in our, in children's letters. And he's just a great guy. Anyway, he was just surrounded by people, just, kind of holding court. But as soon as he saw my boys, he broke off what he he broke off with the crowd that was surrounding him, his adoring fans, and he made a beeline for my boys, and just welcomed them, talked to them about what they were doing and, what they were reading and all of that. And as it turned out, my older son had just read Hatchet. And so they got into a discussion, and I just remember thinking, he didn't have to do that. He had, he was holding forth. There were tons of people surrounding him, and he made a point of greeting my two boys, as if they were the two most important people in the room. And I think maybe he thought that, maybe he felt that they were the most important, and that meant so much to me. And to witness that act of generosity, to those kids, to my kids, just meant the world to me. And so you're bringing this up reminds me of that. So I hope that every act like that generates another act. So there you
I hope so
it.
too. The world of authors will be made better one incredible author moment at a time, hopefully.
Yeah, and it doesn't take that much, does it? It's just a kind of being aware of where you are and who you are and who you're with and all of that. So yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
I think it was a 2 or 3 day conference. I sat in on a couple of your panel discussions. I asked you some other questions, but it was just that one moment. That was maybe two, 3 moments, and here we are 6 years later. I always think of that, and I've bought other books of yours that I maybe wouldn't have bought because God knows I've always got plenty of books to read.
Right.
Despite my love for the underneath, I'm buried under the blog forever. But I always remember Kathi Appelt. That's the kind of author that I want to be if I'm out and about in the world. I want to make sure that I make the day not so much about me, but about all the writers that have come out and are eager to hopefully one day meet me and shake my hand. Although if I'm standing next to either you or Gary Paulson, there's no chance.
Well, thank you. At the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day too, the act of writing or any other kind of creative art, whether it's drawing or music or whatever, is to a large extent very solo. It's very and it's very egocentric, it just is, just by its nature. You have to involve your whole self. And lately, I have to say, trying to launch Angel Thieves has made me feel like every day is all about me. And so, so it's good to remember that there are other people out there in the world. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of that.
The act of publishing a book is a little bit egomaniacal,
Yes.
just because Gary Paulson and Kathi Appelt already exist in the world. Why am I publishing Banneker Bones? If there's any chance that somebody might accidentally read that and they haven't read Angel Thieves or The Underneath or The Keeper or any of your books first, mistake. Read those books, and if there's time left over, come back and check out Banneker. So
No,
that's
don't say that. I feel like I think that I wouldn't say that. I think Banneker Bones is just the right book for just the right reader at just the right time. You know, I think we all encounter books when we need them. And so, yeah, so Banneker Bones, I'm sure, is making its way and changing lives, you know.
Well, at least mine. Maybe one or two others.